Hello everyone, I'm John, and we're reading The Artist's Way for Parents. And when we left off, we were talking about testing. As long as there is pressure to test well, there is pressure on getting the right answer. Learning becomes about right versus wrong, and the stakes are very high to be right. Granite says, where is there room for creative thinking? And where is there room for kids to make mistakes? Mistakes are valuable. We learn from mistakes. And if we are learning only that we'd better not make any mistakes, we are in a precarious position indeed. Quote, in school, kids are put into categories, creative or intelligent. Granite continues, quote, this ignores crossover and does a disservice to the kids. It perpetuates the myth that there is no crossover. And as long as we perpetuate that myth, we perpetuate that reality. If schools do not, in general, foster creativity, then the responsibility falls on the parent to find these opportunities. If art classes are not offered at our children's school, then we must find or create opportunities for our children to explore the arts. Nancy, a mom of two in Indianapolis, put it this way. Parents have to take their kids' creative education into their own hands. Yes, there's cost involved, but if we can put our kids in sports, we can take them to a community theater play. We can expose them to the arts, whether they think they're going to like it or not. If we don't show them what's out there and they're not getting it at school, then how will they ever know their own possibility? With pressure to perform in school and, quote, right answers threatening to matter above all else, it is all the more important that we shepherd our children towards creativity. Judging early artistic efforts is artist abuse. Ridiculing interests or attempts is cruel. We also must be on the lookout for those who would undermine our children's NASCENT creative impulses. We cannot tolerate anyone who throws this kind of cold water on the burgeoning creativity of our child. As much as we can, we must model a healthy respect for this exploration and let our children know that not only are their creative impulses fun, they are vital. In an overscheduled, high-intensity academic culture, children are sleep-deprived and overwhelmed with homework at a frighteningly early age. Pressured to do more so that their chances of getting into college are increased, they are at risk of adding activities that are not of their own choosing. Activities about which they are not truly passionate, pushing themselves to excel for the sake of excelling. They are unlikely to gain pleasure from the act of learning or retain much information past the test date. They count the minutes until the job is done and learn that they must work, satisfied or not, for the sake of the work rather than follow a passion that may indeed lead to a great deal of satisfying work. Quote, the saddest thing I've seen, says Christine Coe, is creativity take a backseat to academics. When students are scolded for their creative wrong answers, they are taught to not create. They are taught to stuff their imagination and focus on rote. The academic shaming that exists in our culture is both rampant and tragic. It took years of teaching in academia, a dubious privilege that I myself experienced, to identify the elusive but deadly enmity that academia harbors towards creativity. Outright hostility is one thing. It can be encouraged and responded to, but infinitely more deadly and terrifying is the subtle discounting that may numb students' creativity in the academic setting. Student work, when scrutinized, is seldom appreciated. It is a rare teacher who will acknowledge strengths as often as readily as he or she points out shortcomings. I am not arguing that the world of academia should become an exalted artist studio. It is, however, my point that creative, intuitive little souls who are trying to flourish and grow become crippled when they are forced to become overly cerebral. When youngsters are daunted early and unfairly because of their inability to conform to a norm that is not their own, a long road to creative recovery is paved ahead of them. Without specific tools, ego strength, or language, many creatives who are routinely squelched in academic settings languish for years in the wake of these shaming experiences. Sometimes opportunity will knock for our children. We are faced then with a decision. Do we allow them to move forward in an audition process that could take them out of school and onto a national stage, or lead to heart-rending rejection? If they are selected to be in a television commercial, do the proceeds from that commercial go into a bank account that is theirs to access at a later date, or to a college fund? In these rare and extreme cases, we must judge our children's needs and desires on an individual basis. There are stories of young working artists that end well, and then there are those that do not. As long as we encourage and support our children's individual voices as we navigate the process, the odds are in our favor. When Audrey was in second grade, she took a standardized test to determine placement in elementary school. Placing in the top percentile and labeled highly creative, she was invited to attend a small magnet elementary school. It would mean leaving her circle of friends and the known world she had experienced to date. But Audrey had not enjoyed second grade. She had often been singled out for not conforming, and after much discussion, her parents decided to enroll her in the magnet school, where she would know no one, but where perhaps her own individuality would be encouraged more than before. It was here that, for the first time, I had teachers who embraced me and all of my idiosyncrasies. Audrey recalls the projects and assignments were graded on both academic performance and creativity. Here, I was the theater kid and the funny one instead of a smart aleck, as I had been described in my old school, where my teachers seemed to spend every day trying to stamp out my creative impulses. Going to Magnet gave me the confidence to continue down that path of self-expression and exploration through middle school and beyond. It is interesting to note that Audrey and an impossibly high percentage of her classmates at Magnet are now professionally successful in some area of the arts. All of them credit their elementary school with their later success. I wasn't sure if the new school would be a legitimate opportunity or if I might be suffocating, or it might be suffocating for her. Too much. Too soon of everything. Audrey's mother remembers now, I'd like to keep a balance with my kids, but she wasn't finding what she needed in her school. And happily, she did find it at Magnet. I'm glad I let her go. Allowing our children to blossom creatively does not mean that they will become professional artists, but it does mean that they are more likely to enter a profession where they are more fully themselves. With active parents who are aware of what their children must find outside of their school, there is hope for our children's creative blossoming. And with educators such as Russell Granite at the forefront of the field, there is hope for the educational system as well. By focusing on what we can do as parents, we can counter a misguided educational system. An exercise. From child to parent. Choose something that your child knows more about than you do and ask him to give you a lesson on it. Be open to learning and open to his knowledge. His own act of teaching and your enthusiastic learning is likely to thrill him. You know things. This tells him you have something to say, something to teach. I want to learn from you. The monster in the closet. Shame and criticism. When our children cry out in the night, afraid that there's something in the closet or under the bed, we confidently tell them that there's nothing to be afraid of. We're right next door. Their teddy bear is here to protect them, and everything's going to be okay. It's not real, we tell them. You're safe. When our children are unfairly shamed or criticized, however, sometimes by their own words, assisting in their recovery will require some finesse on our part. Shaming our children for their artistic expression is something we must be careful to avoid. If we do find ourselves lashing out, we must be quick to make amends. Quote, stop singing, you're really annoying me, unquote, may require an addendum. Quote, I want you to sing and express yourself. You have a beautiful voice. I was just frustrated because it was getting very loud and I couldn't hear Aunt Cynthia on the phone, end quote. Looking back at our own histories, were there sometimes, were there times when we were made to feel foolish or wanting to express ourselves? We must be aware that our own unmourned losses create emotional scar tissue, and in an effort to avoid our own wounds, we may push our children's early artistic attempts away. My mother was beautiful, says Holly. She was a Southern woman, tall, thin, and gorgeous. She prided herself on her manners, style, and decorum, and wanted her daughters to emulate the same. Holly's two older sisters were the spitting image of their mother, stunning brunettes with slight frames. But Holly was very different, nearly a foot shorter, with a stocky build and dirty blonde hair. Holly had her father's athletic physique. I wasn't like my sisters, and I was always aware of that, she remembers now. They took ballet from age 5, and I tried to follow in their footsteps, but I was about as far from a natural ballerina as you could get. I switched to gymnastics, says Holly, and I became a great tumbler. A power gymnast. By age 10, I was competing in junior events, and by age 10, I was aware that my short, muscular build might be okay in the gym, but it didn't look right in the dresses my mother wanted me to wear for the parties she threw. So I started making my own clothes. I loved expressing myself that way. And even though my mother didn't approve of the crazy designs and combinations I came up with, I made them and wore them anyway. She didn't like it, but in general, she didn't stop me. Holly remembers one particularly painful day. My aunt and cousin came for a dinner party. I was 11, and I had just won the highest award I'd ever won in gymnastics. I had the ribbon in my bedroom and couldn't hardly wait to share it. I put together another one of my crazy outfits and came downstairs proud of what I was wearing. My mother was horrified, saying that I couldn't wear that for company. She forced me into the same dress my sisters were wearing, and I was uncomfortable and out of place, strapped inside its pink frills. Trying to improve how I looked, I added some bracelets I had made and pulled my hair into a long sideways braid. When my aunt and cousins arrived, we stood on the porch waiting to greet them. My aunt looked at us all, up and down, and then turned to my mother. Well, at least 2 of them got your looks and sense of style, she said. I was totally embarrassed. I didn't say a word the whole night. I didn't show my gymnastics ribbon to anyone. Now Holly looks back on pictures of herself at that time. I looked great, she says ruefully. I looked athletic and strong, but I felt nothing but awkward compared to my mother and sisters and their Southern ideal of beauty. When I see pictures of myself wearing what I wanted to wear, I see real personality, but it wasn't mirrored back to me as something good, and it made me feel embarrassed of myself as a person and diminished the value of my being an athlete. I wish I could go back and reassure that kid. Holly's story is one that is sadly common. Made to feel physically awkward, we recoil from the spotlight. The athlete who may shine on the gymnastics mat, hamming it up for the judges, shrinks from sight in an ill-fitting dress that is asking her to be someone she's not. Asked to be someone she's not is a short trip to starting to doubt herself as a gymnast as well. Shamed for her different build as well as for her creative attempts at dressing herself, Holly was doubly stung. I wanted to be invisible that night, she remembers. That was all I wanted. Being shamed for expressing ourselves is being criticized unfairly. We start to learn that putting any expression out into the world for attention is a dangerous act. Being wrongly shamed as creatives, we learn that we are wrong to create. Burying this belief under apathy or pessimism, the shame lives on. Doing push-ups while it waits for us to try expressing ourselves again, only to resurface stronger than ever. This is why many of us feel embarrassed to admit that our own creative dreams. This is why many of us are afraid of the creative dreams emerging in our children. We must be brave here. We must face the things that we do not want to face in ourselves, or we risk remaining blocked and discouraging our children as well. Am I saying that there is no such thing as helpful criticism? ? Of course not. Intelligent criticism, insight that gives us an internal aha and lights the way forward in a gentle, productive way is right criticism. Criticism that shames, that asks, how dare you, that snickers, that nitpicks is wrong criticism. Shame is a controlling device. Shaming someone is an attempt to avoid our own shame. Shaming someone else is an attempt to prevent another person from acting in a way that will trigger our own embarrassments. The act of making art is both scary and healing. Art brings light to places that have remained dark. Art brings perspective. Making art at any level is an act of courage and an expression of faith. When our children are shamed or criticized, we must be very firm in our support. Do not pick up the first doubt. We cannot allow negative thinking to take hold. We must protect ourselves as our children as much as we can from useless criticism. It is impossible to avoid it completely, and so when wrong criticism arrives on your doorstep, there are a few steps you must take. Do something very nurturing. Treat the recipient of the criticism with a concrete action of kindness. Look closely at the criticism. What does it remind you of? What does it say about the critic? Criticism as a relevant to, if not more relevant to, the giver than the recipient. Make something with your child. If a painting has been criticized for being too crazy, paint something even crazier. Creativity is the only cure for criticism. An exercise. The monster in the closet. Fill in the blanks quickly. Do not overthink this exercise. I felt shamed when. One person who shamed me was. When I felt shamed, I decided that. When I try to shame someone else, I suspect that it is because. One kind and healing thing I could do for myself is One kind and healing thing I could do for my child is... Chapter 10, Cultivating Humility. In making artful lives, we learn to be right-sized. Practicing modesty, we learn humility. Our children, too, become right-sized as they measure their endeavors against their own standards, not those of others. We are correct to actively appreciate our children's gifts, but acknowledging their creative lives and the accomplishments of their siblings and peers is a delicate issue. Even with the best of intentions, overemphasizing our children's achievements can foster perfectionism, competitiveness, and disconnection from God's plan. Humble. We are all at our most empowered. Humble. We are closest to God. The fame drug. Fame. It is an American drug. A poisonous, rampant distraction. It attacks us at every age, telling us that if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen. Translation: it's too late. You're not good enough. Why even try? We watch the news and see headlines in newspapers of enormous success by people. One, younger than we or our children are. Two, less talented in our eyes than we or our children are. Three, richer and more glamorous than we are. As soon as we start comparing ourselves with a Hollywood norm, we're talking ourselves out of taking action. I can't catch up with that, we think. So why even try to do anything? Or, that's totally unfair. Her daughter is not as talented as mine, but her family is rich because of the opportunity her daughter was given. It is a short road from these thoughts to what's the use? And as soon as we are thinking what's the use, we are dangerously close to rationalizing ourselves out of making any effort at all. This morning, a friend of mine called. She is mid-divorce and soon-to-be single parent to her only son. She is rightfully scared. And to my ear, trying to focus on anything but the unformidable day-to-day requirements of her current situation. I need to write a book, she tells me, or a screenplay, but it has to be a hit. And then I'll be rich and famous and I won't have to worry about anything. I think. I have to write a hit is a slippery place to begin. I have to write what I have to write is where we have more secure footing. Maybe my friend will write a hit book or screenplay, but with this as the starting goal for her first writing endeavor, she is setting the bar unnecessarily high for herself. Does she want to write? Does she feel called to write and to express herself? Or does she want to be rich and famous so she won't have to worry about anything? Perhaps what she really desires is a break from worry. Earning money and gaining acclaim for our creative endeavors rarely gives us a break. More often, the opposite occurs. We are more in demand. There is more pressure. There are more requests, more people asking us for, more. Fame is a byproduct. My literary agent friend says, quote, people are constantly asking me to make them famous. Fame comes once in a while from doing the work. It can't be the goal, and it's part of the equation we have the least power over. My job is to help artists do good work and be compensated fairly for that work, she says. Anyone who claims to be a star maker is focusing on the wrong things and frankly making an empty promise. Fame exists at every level. It may be on the national or international stage, or it may be a perceived hierarchy within our small community. Focusing on fame interferes with what we are doing and with what our children are doing. Instead of being proud of your daughter for being in the school play, you become obsessed with how she was partly cut off in the picture in the local newspaper, or how another girl got the attention that your daughter deserved. The goal becomes being recognized for being in a play instead of enjoying the process of being in a play. The rewarding effort, praising process more than product. We instill in our children a desire to fulfill their own potential. No matter someone's level of natural ability to achieve great things, every person must put forth great effort. As Thomas Alva Edison put it, genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. As long as our children know that the work is never done, the depth of their potential is limitless. It is more effective to reward daily piano practice than to overly celebrate the win at a local piano contest. Excellence is wonderful, but there is always another larger contest. Winning is temporary and must be put in perspective as a joyful occasion, but not an end in and of itself. Growth occurs in spurs and is an erratic forward movement, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. With ourselves and our children, we must be gentle. In the daily conscious effort forward lies the magic of potential and the true power of action. All of us like and deserve to be acknowledged for our efforts. We can't guarantee what we will be acknowledged exactly. We can't guarantee that we will be acknowledged exactly when and how we want to be acknowledged. But we will never be satisfied as long as we are obsessed with outer praise for our actions. When we focus outside ourselves and compare ourselves with others who make us feel that we are coming up short, we are always focusing on lack. When we focus on lack, our joy in the process starts to wither. When we focus on lack, we discredit ourselves and lessen our excitement for the well-earned accomplishments of others. Fame is fickle, and fame can be toxic. At every level, on any topic, the fame drug can disable us. A student in my class talks of her recent experience during the summer break. The other day, I was at the pool with my kids. A bunch of moms were there, and I listened to them gossip about the rankings everyone had gotten at last week's swim meet. I heard them whispering about one kid who won almost every blue ribbon. His mom's over there. A woman snipped, probably trying to see if she can get his picture in the newspaper again. I looked over at the mom and she wasn't doing anything. Her son had beaten the other kids fair and square. I said as much and I wasn't popular for it, but I'll tell you, it got a lot quieter on our side of the pool. I'd rather hear an awkward silence than hear some mom complaining about another kid's unfair advantage. All of our kids swim. All of our kids get ribbons sometimes. It's just not the end of the world. I don't want to become an ugly person because of the color of a ribbon. Focusing on generosity towards an encouragement of ourselves and others, we become strong, allowing our children to know that we see and enjoy their efforts. They are seen and enjoyed. Small, concrete actions on behalf of ourselves and on behalf of our children lessen fame's grip on our soul. When your daughter is in the school play, you can celebrate this by making a scrapbook of memories with her. We can save the ticket stub and a piece of fabric from her costume. We can help her rehearse her lines and clap from the audience. We can videotape the performance and send it to grandparents and friends. And when the play is over, we can ask her what she would like to do next. An exercise, the wish list. When we are seized by the fame drug, we are focused on someone else. To break this painful obsession, we must turn our focus to ourselves. In this moment, we do well to quickly get in touch with our own true desires. The fame drug encourages us to be consumed with something outside of ourselves, something of which we will never get enough. But our true power lies in being focused within rather than without. One of the fastest ways I know to change our focus back onto our authentic selves is with a tool called the wish list. The wish list is deceptively simple. Simply complete the sentence, I wish, 25 times. Here are some examples. I wish I had time to get a massage. I wish I could lose 10 pounds. I wish I had clarity about Jeff and could move on. Unconfused about that relationship. I wish I'd take the time to really scrub the terrace. I wish I could afford to buy a new car. Try it now. Your wishes may be large or small, sublime or ridiculous. There is no wrong wish. I wish blank. When I use this tool and when my students use this tool, a certain magic is unlocked. We cast our imaginations into the future and picture our desires as having come true. For a moment, we pretend that we have what we wish for. In that moment, we contact both our desire and the possibility of that desire being fulfilled. Making these lists, we become in touch with ourselves because there is no wrong wish. Our ideas are free to come to us, unconstrained. It is a powerful tool, and I urge my students to write their wishes down often and save those lists. It's very common to return to the list week or months later and see that, indeed, many of those wishes have been granted. Well, I think that's a good stopping point. We're about 900 bars on GarageBand, and my voice is giving out. So, yeah. Thanks for listening. I struggled a little bit in the beginning. There were some words that I probably should have looked up ahead of time, but I'm reading this right along with you for the very first time. So, see you next time.